So, hey everyone, thank you all for coming out. I love it. So I'm Aaron Dinnan. I teach entrepreneurship at Duke University. My background is I spent a long time building venture-backed tech companies. Actually, my most recent company was a sales enablement tech company. So I'm a big believer in sales and customer acquisition, and it's because I spent a lot of years as a software engineer. So my kind of pathway into the startup world was building cool technologies, and I used to think, gosh, if you build just amazing things, right? You build it, they will come kind of approach to entrepreneurship, which of course never works. And that's where I really learned my appreciation for customer acquisition. And that really you can build the greatest thing in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. So what you all do, I think, is the most important part of any company. Right? It is not coming up with great ideas, building great products. It is customer acquisition, it's sales, it's getting in front of people, getting products into people's hands. So I'm really thankful that you all want to take the time to kind of hear what I have to say. And I've been thinking a lot about, well, how do you build big audiences? So as I kind of moved into Duke, I was teaching entrepreneurship, but then I started moving into thinking about, well, there's this really cool stuff going on with social media. Like you just reach a lot of people. And so I started teaching classes, kind of exploring social media. And then I started creating social media content myself. Eventually, I got a bit of the reputation as I think referred to as the TikTok professor, which I think I wear as a badge of honor, though maybe it's not a badge of honor. I started building some interesting classes where I was just getting students who have large audiences together in my classes to just kind of see what would happen, and that started to take off and get a lot of interesting publicity. My favorite bit of publicity is this, though, from Cosmo. Let's see, it says it's the kind of like a diet version of Chris Jenner's Masterclass for my classes. So Dark Chris is Aaron Din, a social marketing professor with a PhD in English, who has accrued 30,000 TikTok followers. It's old net. Based on what I can only describe as robust white middle-aged professor content. So, if you had told me 20 years ago that I would get called for having dad jokes in Cosmo, next to probably the how to please your man in 5 different ways. Really made it. Anyway, so enough about me. We're not going to talk about me. Let's talk about what we're going to go through. So we're going to start by I want to reframe social media for us, and then we're going to do a bit of understanding of what is good content. We'll dive into, well, what does it take to create effective content? We'll talk about monetizing your content. Then we'll get to the kind of the important part for all of you. It's like, well, okay, so what does this mean to actually get started and use it practically in your day? We're going to miss my joke. By the end, you're going to be TikTok famous. Then there was a joke. Anyway, this is not the goal here, right? The goal is not to turn anyone famous. That's not really the point of using social media. By the end, our goal here is to give you a comfortable understanding of how to leverage social media to get more sales. A few warnings before we jump into the stuff that I always just like to point out. First of all, is the work that I'm going to be talking about here time consuming? Absolutely. I am not here to give you some sort of magical panacea that says we know there is no such thing as magical customer acquisition, right? The reason you're all salespeople is you understand that customer acquisition is not magical. So many people who don't understand sales think, oh, we'll just build something amazing and people show up. That's not how it works, right? We know. So what I'm about to talk here is not magical. I always like to say it is not it's not a sprint, right? It's not this guy. We need to be thinking about this guy. I guess I need to change my marathon winner now that we have a new marathon winner, but throw up your slides. But anyway, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Is this work going to be embarrassing? A lot of people feel embarrassed using social media. They feel self-conscious. Well, yes, absolutely. Like, go ahead and be ready for it. I swore I would never dance on social media when I started doing this, and here's me dancing. You know what? Because I had students who were on the dance team. It's like, well, I should leverage that in some way. And so I was dancing, right? And lastly, is this work going to be expensive? And I don't just mean expensive in terms of money, but just expensive time, commitment, mental bandwidth. And the answer is absolutely, right? Anything that's going to work, that's going to be successful and valuable for you is going to have a cost. So be prepared, because the value of using social media and leveraging social media is enormous. And that means, yeah, there's going to be a cost to using it too, right? That's not going to come for free. I always like to think of it as kind of like buying a house. Right? When you think about buying a house, we don't really go to buy the house. Usually we get a mortgage from the bank. And so we pay that off over the time. And over time, you wind up with this incredibly valuable asset. That's what social media is. It is an asset that you are building over time, so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you have this incredibly valuable thing, and you're slowly paying into that, right? You're building it over time. That's how we want to think about social media. And because of that, the best time really to start thinking about social media was yesterday, but the next best time really is today. Like, you need to get started on this so that 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you have this incredibly valuable asset. You're not just going to suddenly have it overnight. That's what we need to work towards. All right. So let's go. Okay. So part one, I always like to start just by there's different people in the audience and different groups. We're older people. I hate to say that, but we are older people for the most part in here. And as a result, we need to reframe social media a bit because there's still a tendency to think like social media is just the stupid thing that the Gen Z kids do. They're just dancing. Oh, this isn't for me. This doesn't work. So I like to put this stuff into quick context. I just take 3 minutes here to put this into context. And I like to do that just by thinking about traditional media, right? These are kind of our big traditional media players, right? The Today Show has about 3 million viewers a day. Even something like SportsCenter, which you think, oh, SportsCenter, everyone knows SportsCenter, only gets about 800,000 viewers, right? And so let's put that into context, right? I guess I need to change this slide too. The biggest Super Bowl is now the Taylor Swift Super Bowl, which is, I think, is 115 million. But still, 115 million. Netflix is about 220 million subscribers, right? So suddenly when you take something like the Today Show that you think of as big media and you put it in context of that, you go, oh, well, that's actually not that big. But wait till you see how many followers the Kardashians have on X. Kardashians reach about the same people on X as Netflix has subscribers. And you might look at that and be like, oh, well, that's the Kardashians, X, it's not a big deal. There's actually traditional media. The biggest traditional media is the BBC, which used to run the world, right? So they reach about 500 million people, which sounds amazing until you remember that the Kardashians' main platform is actually Instagram, where they reach about 1.25 billion people, right? So the Kardashians reach about 1.5 billion people. They are one of the largest media enterprises in the world right now. We don't think about them like that, right? We think of it as like, oh, those are those silly, catty women, rich women, right? But that's actually not what's happening. They have a multi-billion-dollar media enterprise going on, right? And this stuff creates value. What kind of value is that? Well, let's start by talking about this guy. It's like a summer beach kick. Dwayne Johnson, right? There's a reason Dwayne Johnson is in every movie. And it's not because he's an amazing actor. I mean, he's a pretty good actor. It's not because he's an amazing actor. It's because he reaches about 500 million people by himself on social media, right? Same thing when we start to look at Kylie Jenner, right? Kylie Jenner reaches about 500 million people. It's why she was able to sell her beauty brand for $600 million. It's not because Kylie Cosmetics were amazing cosmetics. It's because she had reach. It's because she had audience, right? And even someone like Ryan Reynolds, right, who only reaches about 100 million people, but you've all seen Ryan Reynolds everywhere, right? He's the #1 movie in the world right now. He sold his whiskey brand for $600 million, sold his stake in Mint Mobile for another 300. He's doing all right for himself, right? It's because he had audience, right? So audience equals influence, audience equals opportunity, and here's the really important part. Are you ready for it? Make sure we're taking notes. Audience is in your pocket. Freaking crazy. You can reach billions of people from your pocket. I know that sounds like a bit of a hyperbole, but the reality is, who's the biggest creator in the world right now? No one knows. Mr. Beast, right? And where does Mr. Beast live? North Greenville. He's like 90 minutes from here. He has videos that regularly reach over 1 billion people.
Oh,
Mr. Beast.
Beast. I said geese.
And so, and again, I'm not saying that we all need to, we don't need, that's not even our goal here, right? We're not talking, but like the reality is there is more access to audience, to customers in your pocket than at any time in human history. Like we should get excited about that, right? So that's what we want to talk about. Like, okay, how do we do that? It starts by trying to figure out like, well, how do we create good content? Look at the last question. What kind of content do you hate? You all use social media. What do you like? Especially think LinkedIn. Because you all see the same things I see. You roll your eyes. Negative. Well, so LinkedIn's not too good about negative content. That's where we're all kind of putting on our brand. But you're right. There's a lot of people building audience online with negativity.
Corporate content, like from those brands.
The second you get the sense of like, oh, this is like clearly someone trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it's really polished content, oh, this is a brand trying to act cool, they're trying to sell me, and you kind of immediately turn off the mind. What else do you hate on LinkedIn?
For me, it's all the repetitive stuff where it's like, congratulations, but like it's cookie cutter between every single person. So how excited are you?
It's that I'm so pleased to announce that I just got this promotion, right? I wanted to get some screenshots for this. I really just last night when I was making the slides, I just had to open LinkedIn and it was easily the first post. We're already there, right? I'm so excited to announce I'm going to business school. I'm so excited for my book that came out. I went over to Instagram. Oh, I'm just so pleased, sharing my wife's birthday. And then over on Threads, oh, I had a plot breakthrough in the shower this morning. Who cares?
Me.
Right? This is me content. It is selfish content. What most people get wrong on social media is they create content about themselves. Right? There's a lot of reasons why that happens. We could talk about it. It's not important. It's just know that that is the core problem that people have. They talk about themselves on social content, on social media. Why doesn't selfish content work?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, right? Strangers don't care about you. Who do strangers care about?
Kardashians.
Yeah, well, the Kardashians are an extension of that we can talk about if we have time. Strangers care about themselves. So to effectively leverage social media, we have to start by asking a simple question: is why should strangers care about what you're posting? That's it. It's just a tiny mentality shift that's going to dramatically level up everything you're going to do on social media. If you can start remembering that, oh, I'm not supposed to be posting about me, I'm supposed to be posting about things that create value. Getting strangers to care about your content requires creating content that provides value. From there, it's just a question of, well, okay, so what kind of content provides value on social media? Well, what kinds of things do people enjoy? Well, so go into the entertainment. Right? We like to be entertained. We love humor. We love to be inspired. We love to learn. People love to learn on these platforms, right? So what kinds of things provide value? So I'll give you an example of a post that I've created that do. Yeah, there's educational, funny, and entertaining. So anyway, creating content that creates value. One in that I like to say, follow the grandma rule. The grandma rule is basically think about it like this. When you post a piece of content, ask yourself, would my grandma like this piece of content? And if the answer is yes, it is probably a bad piece of content. And think about it, it's because your grandma cares about you. She loves you. She wants to know what you're eating for lunch. She wants to see pictures of your kids, right? She wants to wish your wife a happy birthday when you post saying, oh, I just want to tell everyone I have the greatest wife in the world. Let's celebrate her birthday, right? That's the grandma rule. And usually if your grandma's going to care about it, it means nobody else is. Right. So we got to create value. We create value by, again, understanding that our audience is functionally selfish. But value alone isn't going to grow audience. We also need consistency. So we're talking about content, topic, quality, tone, basically your brand, right? Consistency is what builds a brand. Brands are critical because once you have a brand, that's what makes people feel connected to you. It's called a parasocial relationship. We won't go into all that. But the reason we all feel like we love Taylor Swift or insert whatever celebrity you do love, right, is because of a parasocial relationship. She has no idea who you are, but you love Taylor Swift because you feel like you know her. That's what you're trying to create on social media. That's what your brand is doing. Now, you need people engaging with you. This is critical. They need to feel like they know you. They need to feel like they love you because their engagement with your content is what's going to drive the algorithms crazy. It's what's going to cause the algorithms to push out your content to other people. Right? So you need them to post, you need them to like, you need them to comment and share, right? That tells the algorithms, hey, this is good, valuable content. And this, by the way, is why those posts on LinkedIn are, I was like, I'm so thankful that I just got a promotion. That's why those posts tend to do well. It's because you see them, and even though you hate them, you hit like, right? Because you don't want to be the jerk who didn't hit like. And so the algorithm thinks, oh, this must be good content. And it's a misdirect, so people just think, oh, that's what I should be creating. That's not what's really going on, right? It's just driving the algorithm a problematic way.
LinkedIn also creates that for you.
Exactly. They make it super easy, right? So how do we make content super easy? Well, let's talk about that in a second. So when we think about consistency, one thing we just want to know if we're creating valuable content, we want to consistently engage back with them, right? The core of social media is engagement. It's responding to people who post on your content. Because consistent engagement creates value. Ultimately, I call this the holy trinity of audience building. Value, consistency, engagement ultimately is what gets people to care. Your goal on social media is to get strangers caring about your posts, right? And once strangers start to care about your posts, that's when you can sell them basically anything. Right? So that's the fundamental principle. It's just like giving you a ground rule, like it's just a mindset shift. Your mindset going into content is how do I create content that's valuable to people that they're going to care about? So let's get more tactical. What is specifically, we talk about what is effective content. How do we create it? Well, a single post, right, that goes viral, that happens, right? Sometimes, you go on to TikTok and you post a video because you're happening in the right place at the right time, post it goes wildly viral. That's just luck. It can happen that you can have a single post that gets millions of views randomly. But to get consistently viral posts, well, it comes from a couple of things. One is from positioning yourself well and then having lots of opportunities. I like to describe it a lot in relation to basketball because we're in the triangle here. So we all get basketball, right? It's like rebounding. And you hear people are good at rebounding. Well, rebounding is just kind of luck, right? You were just in the right place and the ball came to you. Well, there is a level of luck, but also the best rebounders understand the physics of what's going on, right? They understand the technique. They understand how to position themselves well. They understand who's shooting and where the ball's likely to bounce off. So they have a better chance of getting that rebound. And even beyond that, the best rebounders, well, you don't get on the court unless you practice really hard and you spend years and years and years becoming a great basketball player. Right? And the same thing happens on social media, right? Like, yeah, you could get lucky and maybe capture one rebound in an NBA game if someone put you in there. But to do it consistently at a super high level is going to take a lot of kind of practice and understanding the technique and then putting in the effort, right? So you're responsible functionally to put yourself out there, right? You're responsible for increasing your opportunities for success. That means creating the content that goes out there. What I'm going to talk to you about now is how do you create content that's going to position you in a way that you've got proper structure. Structural considerations in content actually account for about 85% of social media success. In other words, the how is more important than the what. This is what people get wrong all the time. They think it's all about coming up with a great idea for your content. Oh, I just have to have some brilliant piece. No, that's not what you should worry about. There's fundamental structural pieces of content that are going to make content more successful. And once you understand that, then you just start wedging your content into those structures, right? So what do I mean by structure? Well, structure is a combination of format and style. Format is going to be fixed. This is the way every piece of content has to work. It's like language. You know how language works, like subject, verb, complement, right? Every sentence has to have a subject, verb, complement. That's just how language is. That's kind of how content on social media is, right? And then style, that's where you kind of move around and say things in different ways, whether you're going to use passive tense or active voice, right? All those kind of logistical things in language. Same thing happens over in content, right? That's where you put your own spin on things. So let's talk about the pieces of that. So the fixed content format that every piece of content has to have is a strong hook. That's the first second or two, right? And when I say first second or two, I really mean the first second or two. That's as long as you have here. I'll demonstrate. Ready, go. That was 5 seconds. Felt like an eternity, right? Think about when you're scrolling, how quickly you scroll. You start to understand why the hook is important. So you got strong hook, capture people's attention. Forward-leaning tension. Once you capture their attention, you got to keep them invested. Otherwise, they're going to bounce. The forward-leaning tension, and then a satisfying conclusion. So let's break down these things into a little more other component pieces. So a strong hook. What's going to get someone to say, oh yeah, I'm willing to listen to more? Basically, this is a biological issue, right? It comes from your amygdala, right? Your amygdala is this little part of your lizard brain that basically is doing all the work you're doing in this room right now. The vast majority of input stimuli you're totally ignoring, and it's because your amygdala is basically telling you there's no big deal here. But if there was suddenly a really loud crash, your amygdala would go, ooh, we better filter that up, because if we need to run, then I got to tell my body to run, right? That's what's going on social media too. You're just kind of operating mechanically until something captures your attention and you go, ooh, I should think about this in a higher order of thinking. That's why a thirst trap works so well. You all know what a thirst trap is, right? Pretty girl in a bikini, hot guy with his shirt off, six-pack outside. That's because our amygdala goes, ooh, pretty person. Let me think more carefully about this. Right? Same thing's happening. That's your hook. So a strong hook, again, you got maybe a second, maybe two in video. Of course, you've also got when you're writing articles, right? It's a title of an article. If nobody is interested in the title, they're not going to click to read everything else, right? So that's basically someone saying, I want to hear more. I'm willing to give you a few more seconds. Once you get them in, you've got to have that forward leaning tension to what's coming out, the promise that there's more coming, right? That's why lists work so well, right? The top 10, blah, blah, blah. right? Well, because the top 10 is setting you up for, oh, I'm going to keep reading. And then they go in reverse order 10, 9, 8, say, because you want, oh, what's number one? I want to get to number one, right? That tension is the thing that's going to keep pushing it forward. And then lastly, you want some sort of satisfying conclusion, that moment at the end when people go, oh, yeah, I get it. Oh, man, this makes sense. I'm going to share it to somebody. And I had another nice piece we were going to show that, this video is, I'll describe it for you. It's a video I took in my classroom as one of my students was walking in. There's a good chance you've seen it because it's got 25 million views on it. And basically a student came in and I said, hey, why are you sitting in that seat you're choosing? It's like, oh, well, that's an interesting question. Why is this professor asking that? And then I made a bet with him. And I said, well, who do you think is going to sit next to you? He's like, my buddy. I'm like, oh, yeah. How much you want to bet that he's going to sit there? And then we waited for his buddy to come in. And a minute later, the buddy walks in. Where does he sit? And so there's so much tension leading up to it. Where is the kid going to sit that everyone wants to see? Where's the kid going to sit? Finally, the kid sits down. And then I do something really nice because I made a bet that if his buddy, whatever it was, if his buddy sat somewhere else, he would lose points. And I wound up, so it was in a position where he's going to lose points. And I gave him extra bonus points. And so it was a satisfying, wonderful, warm teacher moment, right? So it had a very satisfying conclusion. And that video has about 25 million views on it because it just follows this formula perfectly to a T. All right, so we won't watch it, we'll move on. So, okay, so that's structural considerations we have to think about. Now, the style is you, your brand, your tone, what kind of makes the content unique to you. And by the way, again, you could go to any great creator's video and it's going to have that strong hook, good tension, satisfying conclusion, right? That's what's going to work. Now, here's what's going to make your video important. So to do that, we're going to talk about this guy. This is Aristotle. We're hearing about him thousands of years ago. Believe it or not, he's just as important to social media content as every other type of narrative that ever existed. Basically, the 3 rhetorical modes of persuasion that I'm not going to go into detail here because, oh my gosh, I just realized that clock has stopped. So I've been like, I was looking at it very early on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've only got 25 minutes. I told you that, yeah. So I've been like speeding through. Okay. Rhetorical modes of persuasion. Now I've got to like string out my ending. So let's impress with the pacing. Yeah. Good. Goodness, actually, there's 130 something slides in here, so we're making good time. So, anyone remember the 3 rhetorical modes of persuasion from your 9th grade English class?
Those logos, pathos.
Those pathos logos, right? You all vaguely remember hearing about these things. Hopefully someday. You can't remember, that's okay. We're going to talk about it. But so what you need to know before I explain what they are is that the more of these a piece of content has, the better it's likely to do. Right? So again, Aristotle identified these fundamental principles thousands of years ago, and they are still just as true today as they were back then. And this is something you have to understand. This is where a lot of my research is, and that I won't bore you with, but my background is I have a PhD in English literature. And you think, oh, poets, like that's old, stuffy literary thing. No, if you hopped into a time machine and went back to like the 1850s and started talking to, say, Walt Whitman, right? He wasn't trying to be a great literary figure. He was like the TikToker of his day, right? The popular media was poetry and serialized novels and editorials, right? And so the same principles that made Shakespeare Shakespeare are the ones that make Mr. Beast, right? And the Kardashians, they're Kardashians. It's all the same, right? So that's why we can take something like ethos, pathos, logos, rhetorical stuff that's in Greek theater, and still understand that it actually shows up just the same way. I'm not going to bore you with all that stuff, but that's where all of my research comes. That's where all this is kind of baked in from. So here, let me just tell you what these things are. Ethos is credibility, right? Showing that this person speaking, that person creating content has some level of authority. The most obvious way to think about it is just number of followers, right? You see someone who has 100 million followers, you're like, oh, okay. Clearly, this person must know something, right? That creates credibility. But there's so much other credibility you can create. You all can create as business professionals. You already have it. You've been doing a job for however many years that you've been doing it, right? You are a seasoned authority. You can position yourself. I'm in a position of authority right now, right? Because I'm standing in the front of a room, right? That makes me an authority. That's ethos. That's credibility. All the way down to your degrees, to what companies you work for. These things all demonstrate credibility. So how do you create credibility on social? How do you signal it? I'll give you an example, something I do a lot. If you watch a lot of my content, you've seen that I do a lot of my videos now in an empty classroom. Well, what I discovered is if I did the same exact content in my office, whereas if I do it in an empty classroom, the one in my office does significantly worse than if I do it in an empty classroom. And it's just the background, right? People see it and they go, they look at it and go, oh, this person must be a professor, a teacher, someone I should listen to. So that's why I do all my content classroom now. Right? You can do the same thing. Where you position yourself, what you put in the background, what you wear, right? Having glasses, not having glasses, right? Those kinds of things can create your credibility. So again, you don't need 100 million followers. It's how do you project credibility? You're someone worth listening to. Same thing with audio quality, video quality. Those tiny little things add up to making people go, oh, this person is worth my time. Pathos is emotion. And how do you create emotional content? And we all know what pathos on social media does. This is why dog TikToks do so well, why people love cat TikToks, right? Like cat memes, right? It's because anything that makes you laugh, cry, feel good about yourself, right? It works well. And then logos is logic. So using facts, using data, using figures, using analytics, that kind of stuff. Now, which of these three things, ethos, pathos, logos, do you think is most important in social media, by the way?
Pathos.
Ethos.
It's definitely pathos. Emotion is everything, right? And this is why so many people try to pick fights. This is why this is not at all political commentary. This is why Donald Trump's structure is to pick fights with people and get people enraged. You either love Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump, but you're not neutral about the guy, right? That's pathos, right? That's locking into your emotions. And it turns out we are very emotional creatures. And salespeople, you all know this too, right? Because you all probably try to lock into emotion when you're selling. Same thing online. Here's one other thing I'll throw out there is that actually could be something else going on here. It turns out that there's a secret fourth mode of persuasion that nobody ever talks about anymore. It's actually kind of gotten lost to the sands of time. It's called kairos. There was ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. But we kind of lost it because there's not really a good direct translation for kairos. It kind of means timing, but it's not like how long something takes. Let's create a quick translation for it. It's discoverability, relatability, shareability in the moment. So, for example, the Olympics, right? If you were posting about the Olympics when the Olympics were happening, that content would have done well, right? It was the timing of it was good. Everyone's talking about the Olympics. If you're posting about the Olympics right now, that content's not going to do nearly as well. Because it's just not good timing anymore. So it's being topical. Whatever people are talking about in the world, that's kairos, and it is hugely important. Now, like with rhetoric, ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos, they work together to basically impact how persuasive a post is. The way I like to visualize it is if you played a lot of video games, if you think about you're choosing the weapon that you're going to choose and they have like different skills. This one has better durability, but less power, or takes longer to reload. And there's this like little bar chart. That's kind of how I think about these on all my content. Like, oh, this post has, okay, ethos, really good pathos, not so good logos, and good, pretty decent kairos. That post is probably going to do all right. Right? And so you want to kind of play with your levels, and you're going to start to notice different levels are going to impact the success of a post. Again, I was going to show you a fun post here that did really well. It has about 10 million views. I think 12 million views at this point across platforms. What it is and what's beautiful about it, and I'll just describe it because it's useful for us to hear because we're doing the same exact thing. It's just me talking to my class, camera sitting in a corner. That's all it was. I was giving a tip on LinkedIn, and my advice, I'll give you all the same tip. I told my students what you need to do right now, as soon as class was over, told them to go to any auditorium on campus, bring a friend, maybe dress a little nicer, lecture or something, stand at the front of that auditorium and just pretend like you're giving a presentation. Have your friend take a picture of you, post that as your cover photo on LinkedIn. Not your headshot, but your cover photo. Right? And what that's going to do, right, is every job that goes to potentially hire this person is going to go to their LinkedIn account, and they're going to see you standing in front of a room giving a presentation. They're immediately going to think, oh, this person, other people must want to listen to this person. This person has authority. Right, so that's all that post is. Again, just camera sitting in the corner. It's bad quality. It's grainy. The audio is a little rough.
Just got you another version.
So It's got great ethos because they're standing in front of a room. Pathos, man, people got really like they were heated. They're like, this is amazing, or I can't believe they're teaching this stuff in college. This is horrible. Right? But people had strong emotions about it in the comments and argued for months. I still get people arguing about this post, and it was posted about a year ago. Logos, you hear and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of that makes sense. I should totally do that. The only thing is kind of missing is Kairos, but still, everyone's always looking for jobs and applying to jobs. So there is just kind of built-in good timing. And the result of having all those things together is wild success. Again, it didn't take slaving over a piece of content for years. Put a camera in the corner, creates content for you. And this is one of the key things you need to understand about content creation. I'm sitting up here, I'm talking about building a big audience. I'm showing you these kind of posts where I spend a lot of time doing it. But the reality is the best advice for social media content creation is to not create content at all. It's to simply document your life, document what you're already doing. You are already doing interesting things. You just are, right? Whatever company you're selling for, or whatever your passion is, if it goes beyond here, right? You're doing interesting things in your day. The most successful content creators aren't sitting down thinking like, oh, what can I do today? They're documenting what they're already doing. And that's all I was doing in this post, right? I was teaching. I was going to be teaching anyway. Pop the camera up. So we're going to watch it. We're going, you didn't notice how simple it was because we didn't get to watch it, but go back, find it. You'll see it's a very simple piece of content. So let's get to the important stuff, talking about monetizing this. Okay, so what does this all mean, right? Now I got to create a bunch of videos, and I got to post them on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and 10 other platforms I've never heard. One of the first questions I get from people is like, what platform should I be using? And what I need to understand is like that's actually the wrong question. Right? Because we have to understand that the purpose of social media isn't about using social media. It's really not like, oh, let me see how big of an audience I can build on a platform. It's not about having 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million followers. The purpose of social media is to drive sales for yourself. That's what we're thinking about using it for. How do you build awareness that you're then going to turn into customers? So the platforms are just, they're conduits to this, to driving sales to yourself. And the thing you have to remember is that on those platforms, you don't own the followers, right? They are not your followers. They're the platforms. You can be deplatformed, right? Or the platform's popularity can wane. There can be another platform, right? You don't want to invest in the platform as your thing. What you want to understand is the platforms are just lead gen. And that's why this stuff is so exciting. Again, you can reach billions of people here. The platforms, the social media platforms are your tool for doing that. And then you want to drive them to your home base. That's how I like to think, guys. Everything is actually designed to go back to your home base. Where it's your fly traps. How are you capturing these people so that you can continue to engage with them and build relationships over time? And this is something I know you all understand because this is what great salespeople do. They don't try to make the sale the first time you meet someone. You build a relationship with someone. You provide value to them over time. And eventually that starts to build trust and caring that ultimately results in a sale. Well, this is the same exact thing. It's just digital and asynchronous, right? So your home base is the way you do that. For example, my home base is my newsletter, Entrepreneur Office Hours. I try to drive everyone, sign up for my newsletter. Why do I want you to sign up for my newsletter? Because I get your email address. And now I can send you every week nurturing content that's going to create more value for you, build relationships, build trust for you. And it's so incredible. There's people all over the world. They're writing to me constantly. They love what I do. I wind up hopping on the phone with them. I give them advice on their startups, their businesses, whatever they're doing. Not necessarily trying to sell them anything, but maybe at some point there might be something to sell. But by the time I'm going to sell to them, it's not like I'm trying to take advantage of them. It's that they know that here's the kind of value that I can deliver as someone you might hire. And if I say, hey, I'm offering this product or service, they know that they can trust that I'm going to deliver that to them, right? That's the sales process. And so you want a home base. That's where you're going to nurture people over time. So my funnel is driving people to my website, arrington.com. And these platforms, whether it's a podcast or LinkedIn, it's like get to arrington.com. And then once you get there, it's like, hey, sign up for my newsletter. Hey, take a free class with me. Just give me your email address. Everything's trying to get to that email address. And then I'm just going to nurture you over time. And keep providing value. That's your core audience. Those are the people that you're providing the most value to, who you're trying to build meaningful relationships with. And so understanding that, right, is that each platform kind of serves a different purpose in your funnel. And so which platform is like, well, what kind of funnel are you trying to build? Who are you trying to reach? Right? What kind of content makes sense for you to be creating, right? X and threads, that's where kind of opinions and happenings are going on. LinkedIn, as we all know, that's the business platform. That's where you're trying to build kind of good business relationships. That's industry specific. Instagram, more aspirational, more lifestyle content. Though there's a lot more kind of educational content that's starting to move over to Instagram. TikTok is where you get a lot of the kind of the behind the scenes and personality. It makes people feel like they get to know you. And the point is, you don't have to be on all these. Just find one of these that kind of serves your purpose, where your audience is, whoever you're trying to sell to. And that's kind of where you want to focus your efforts. So let's kind of now get to that last part though. Okay, so what does it mean to focus your efforts? Here's what I'll tell you, and I just want to kind of make sure my bias is clearly on the table here. Everything I just said might not be perfectly relevant to you, because a lot of what I do and the work I'm focused on is helping individuals build large public brands for themselves. Right, that's what I'm known as. That's there's different kinds of social media marketing, right? So mine is very much personal brand building for public figures or people who want to operate like public figures, and that comes out of my work with my colleague, my co-founder here, Chris, on Audience Acceleration Labs. What we do there is we call it the Audience Accelerator. Basically, business people, politicians, athletes, the kind of people who are very public-facing individuals. They come to us. We worked with them for about a year. We run them through a boot camp to how do you build and manage audience long term. Because if you're an NBA player, right, that's where your brand, that's where your endorsements are going to come. If you're a CEO, right, that's how you're going to maybe use that brand that you built for yourself to fundraise. If you're a salesperson trying to build a big brand, that's how you're going to build kind of a Rolodex and a network of connections that you're going to be able to then go to build an audience you can sell to, right? So this is kind of much more about long-term personal brand building strategies. That might not be here. It's just not right for everyone. Like, I'm going to be 100% honest. It takes, I spend probably 20 to 30 hours per week creating content because that's what I do, right? That makes sense for my brand. It might not be what you need to do, but you don't actually need to build a huge audience to leverage social media. So I want to make sure, Chris said, he's going to make sure you give them an actionable thing that they can do right now when they leave here. So I'm going to give you what I like to call the LinkedIn formula. You don't need to have millions of followers. You don't even need to have any followers. It's just about how to use LinkedIn in an effective way to start building relationships that can turn into customers. Right. So here's the thing I hate. The way most people use LinkedIn to try to network is they just connect with you and they send a fairly generic message. And it's just so easy to ignore that stupid connection request with a generic message. In fact, I just took a screenshot of my, that's how many invitations I have from people right now that I just ignore them. And a lot of people just do it. Like, why would I connect with you? I don't know who you are. You want me to connect? That's not what we want to accomplish here, right? Instead, what you want to do is you want to build an actual meaning relationship with human beings. And the way we do that is, first, what can you post on social media? Well, start getting comfortable posting. If you don't want to be creating videos of yourself, share interesting articles and news about whatever industry you're operating in. That's easy. You don't have to post yourself. You don't have to picture yourself or videos. It's like, look, here's news that's happening in this industry that's going to be related to the people that I'm trying to capture. Now, you might not get as many likes and shares and whatnot on that stuff as you do on the, I just want to announce my promotion, right? Well, we talked about that before, right? That's because that's what the algorithm is driving. But here's the thing, is the news related to your industry, the people who do engage with that content, that's the gold mine, right? That's those are the gold nuggets, right? If you think about how gold mining happens, right? You got this big old plot of land, but then you got to sift through it to get the gold nuggets out. That's what you're doing, right? So it's like a fly trap. Post an article about your industry that you're trying to sell into. It's a fly trap. People who are interested in that are going to engage with it. Right? So that's one thing you can easily do. Another type of content you can easily post that you should always post is praise other people's success. Instead of, I'm so pleased to announce my promotion into whatever, when your manager gets promoted, we're like, I'm so excited for my manager, where no one deserves better than this person, right? It's like when you go into a party and like you walk in, you start talking badly about someone, immediately everyone thinks badly about you, right? But if you go and you start talking positively about other people, people just think positively about you. Same thing happens on social media. So don't talk about yourself and your accomplishments. Talk about other people and their accomplishments. And it's going to reflect, oh, here's someone who's father, it brings good value into social media. It makes me feel better about myself looking at this person lifting up other people. And again, you don't have to post videos of yourself. You don't have to talk about yourself at all. Other people. Share other people's relevant events. I saw some people doing it for this. Again, it's a great strategy because now you're doing both. You're creating value for your target audience and you look amazing because you're promoting other people instead of yourself. So that's like the goal. When you see events that are related to the people you're trying to court, share them because it's just going to make you look awesome while providing great value. Again, you can all do that immediately right now. And then add engaging comments to other people's posts because there's nothing worse than posting and having no one comment. Right. And so go be the person who comments on other people's posts. Again, it's going to make you look awesome and you're going to show up more in other people's feeds. And oh, by the way, you're helping your friends, you're helping the people you care about. Your name's going to keep showing up in it's a potential sales lead you're trying to court. Comment on their posts. They're going to start to feel like they know you because you're always there and you're saying wonderful things about them. And like, oh, I know if I post this, Sally over here is definitely going to, post something. So it's not like, I'm not going to feel like I'm talking to a vacuum. So be the other person on the other side of social media, and it's going to, again, reflect positively back on you. And then finally, this is the secret sauce right here, is ask thoughtful questions on other people's posts. You find sales agents, you find people that you want to target, you want to engage with, ask them thoughtful questions and see who responds. Because when they respond, guess what's going to happen? It's going to juice the algorithm. The algorithm's going to say, oh, this person commented on this piece of content. Oh, this person responded. And usually there's like a conversation, and other people are going to chime in with their opinions. And the algorithms go, oh, this is interesting. And every time someone posts, every time someone engages, right, that's what LinkedIn does, is it shows your content in other people's feeds. So if there's people you're trying to target, you're trying to sell to on LinkedIn, by getting them to comment on your posts is going to actually lift your post and your content and your name into their network, which is presumably a lot of other people you want to sell into, right? And again, none of this took creating any sort of videos of yourself, having to put yourself out there, having to talk in the camera or do all the stupid stuff I do. It's just engaging, it's building relationships online, which is something you're all great at already. And finally, should be number 6, whatever. That's when you can connect, right? And that's when you say, oh, I was just commenting on your post, and I'm so surprised to notice we're not already connected. They're going to get that, and they're going to go, oh, yeah, why aren't we connected? I feel like I know you. Yeah, I'll accept this post. I'll accept this connection request. And now you've actually built a relationship. The same thing, again, that you all are great at doing all the time anyway. It's just remembering you're doing it kind of asynchronously long term. But I guarantee if you do this every week, right? I'm going to share an article a week. I'm going to praise someone. I'm going to share one event every week. And every day, I'm going to carve out time, put 30 minutes on your calendar. This is the time that I go and I comment on other people's posts. I ask them questions. People I'm trying to target, people I'm trying to focus on, people I'm trying to build relationships with. Do that every day for a month. You will have at least 5 new leads. Do it every day for a year. You'll have tons of new leads. Do it consistently as part of your sales motion. You will have a consistent pipeline of leads, right? And that's what we're looking for, right? You just have to do the work. It's just you have to understand that payoff is coming. And so here's the kind of the last reminder I want to give, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can. Most people, when they think about this stuff, they think success is kind of linear, right? It's like, I'm going to just do it and immediately the value is going to show up. It's not how this works. It isn't. Growth on social media is what I call is exponential, which means in the beginning, it's going to feel very wasted. You have to know that the value is coming. It really is. You just have to believe it, right? That's why I started talking to like sharing, look how many people, there's billions of people, they're all here. But I had to get you excited because you have to commit, because it's just going to take some time. And during this time, it's going to feel like nothing is happening. But if you do it consistently for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, that's when the cool thing starts to happen. It's kind of like working out or trying to lose weight. Like you do it, you're hoping like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm eating right. I'm going to the gym every day. And then you haven't lost 50 pounds and have washboard abs in the first month and you go, oh, I'm going to give up. That's not, of course it's not going to work like that. of course, this isn't going to work like that either. So what you always need to remember is, when we tend to compare ourselves on social media, you start here and you're like, I'm not getting any traction. The person you're comparing yourself to is way up there, way better. And you're like, how is that person doing it? I must be better. This isn't worth it. I must suck at this. But people always tend to forget the x-axis, right? It's easy to measure yourself on the y-axis. Never forget about the x-axis. The x-axis is time. Success takes time. So once you understand that there is immense value here, you just need to commit to it. And if you're willing to put in the time, I guarantee, money back guarantee, that you will start to achieve meaningful value from this stuff. So yeah, I hope this is a useful way of helping you rethink about it, reframe these tools, and understand kind of the immense potential you all have. They just like sit in your pocket. Questions? How can I help you?
Okay, one.
Yeah.
I felt in the last few years that the internet is becoming more and more broken, and it's just a whole bunch of garbage that I don't want to watch, and everyone's juicing algorithms and and I have an AI company, but I'm going to talk shit about AI right now. Like, it's all this stuff that's like clickbaity, and everyone's trying to sell me something to use at my company all the time, and I'm kind of jaded with using it because there's so much more content ever, and like, is authenticity the key, or is like money and the AI route, and is that the key?
So it's a big we go into all sorts of ethical and parasocial questions on it. But the answer is what you're ultimately doing if you're creating this phrase in business, right? The customer is always right. And everyone misunderstands that phrase. We hear that phrase, your customer is always right. And that means whatever the customer asks for, that's what you give them. But that's not what it means. Customer is always right means you have to meet the customer where they are. You're not going to change how they behave. You've just got to kind of accept this is what they do and figure out how to meet them where they are. And it turns out that the amazing thing about social media and creating social media content is if you post something and it only gets 50 views on it, well, then it's the customer is telling you that it's not effective. It's not something that appeals to them. It doesn't matter if you think it's the greatest thing in the world. If they're not responding to it, then it doesn't matter, right? The customer is always right. And so the reason you're seeing kind of this content that's evolving in certain ways is because that's what consumers are showing their preferences are. And it's not for me to say whether it's good or bad, right? It's for us to accept, well, that's clearly what's generating meaningful results. And as long as it generates meaningful results, people will do that until it stops generating meaningful results and people move on to something else.
I guess, can I reframe the question just a little bit? Because there's so much content being created, this unnatural content, if you will, and there's so little authentic content. Is that actually driving out like the opportunity?
Okay. So like in terms of people just putting up kind of crappy or not good AI content.
Yeah.
So I put two things. If it's really good AI content, then yeah, it will absolutely work and be effective. But the thing about creating good AI content, as you know, if you're in an AI company, is that it's not magic. It still takes lots of effort to create really great AI-enabled content, right? So if it's high quality content, it will do well. And if it's not high quality content, it'll do poorly. And so it won't drive you out. It's the question of what are you going to use to create effective, meaningful content on social media? And the things that we talked through, right? Ethos, pathos, logos, the structure, having a great hook, having kind of forward-leaning narrative, having something meaningful, providing value at the end, something shareable, right? That's going to be effective content. And as long as it's structured well, it'll be fine. And the AI doesn't do that particularly well, to be quite honest. Will it ever? I don't know. I'll probably be dead by then. So that's good news. Or bad news.
Aaron, how have you used it in your process?
Yeah. That's a great. So the way I use AI for that, everyone thinks like, so I write 2 to 3 articles a week. And so it's easy to imagine, like now you can just go to AI and have it, write the articles and that should be really easy. No, not at all, right? Because we all know AI creates kind of very meaningless articles, right? And so, so what I do is, but it's become an incredible brainstorming partner for me,
Yes.
all my content. So what I do is when I'm driving around, actually, I'll use ChatGPT. I'll use the voice system on there as I'm trying to like come up with ideas for posts, and I'll just talk to her in Scarlett Johansson's voice. It's having her in the car with me.
Scarlett Johansson, I have a dude. It sounds like he's mansplaining to me.
Yeah, it really actually does. But I have a conversation with it, and I just ask it questions. And the great thing about it is it becomes this transcript of our conversation for to read it. And what at least the Chat GPT version of AI is just word association, which really is all kind of creativity is association. And so usually what happens is I'll use it to help me come up with an interesting piece of content or an interesting idea for a post or a thread. Again, it's not just a video, but like if I'm trying to come up with I need to post a thread, what should I, or a tweet for the you still use tweets, the threads, just move the threads, guys. So what am I going to post? I'll go and it'll trigger something in my mind. I go, oh, I had this great experience that actually would make for a good thread. And so usually it almost has nothing to do with what I came up with or what it told me, but it triggered something in my mind. So that's how I have gotten a lot of value out of using AI for content creation. So it's more of a partner, and it does make it way more efficient because there's nothing worse than sitting at a blank text box, right? Looking at a blank text box is really hard. So don't start with a blank text box. Go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need an idea for a LinkedIn post. Just see what it tells you. Let that trigger stuff.